The shot cracked like thunder through the execution dome. A lance of violet plasma slammed into the human's chest, searing flesh, rupturing bone. He stumbled backward, spasming. A hush fell over the crowd of 10,000 alien warriors, watching from obsidian-tiered balconies carved into the walls of the arena. Smoke curled from the wound. His body twitched once, then dropped. General Vertal turned his back. And thus ends humanity's final whisper. But then, a sound. A low, choked cough. Not of pain. Not of struggle. Laughter. It bubbled up from the human's shattered chest, wet and uneven at first, then steadier. Stronger. Louder. The general froze mid-step. Around him, a ripple of uncertainty spread through his command. Warriors shifted. Murmurs rose. Eyes darted to the arena floor. The human lay twisted in a pool of his own blood, skin scorched, ribs exposed, breath ragged. But he was laughing. Shoulders shaking with it. Eyes gleaming with something primal and unreadable. General Vertal turned slowly. Why does he still breathe? His adjutant, Commander Kelvar, checked the monitor embedded in his gauntlet. Impossible. That blast was terminal. Heart. Lungs. Nervous system. Then why does he laugh? The general barked. Down in the pit, the human dragged himself to a seated position. The arena lights caught the edge of his shattered jaw, the blood dripping from his chin. Still, the smile never faltered. You thought that would be enough? He croaked, voice shredded and surreal. One shot for all of us? Kelvar leaned in. General, we must evacuate the dome. Now. Evacuate? Vertal hissed. From one human? The human tilted his head, as if hearing the remark. Not just one. You didn't kill me. You activated me. The general's expression cracked. For 300 cycles, Vertal had conquered species. He'd watched countless enemies fall, some begging, some silent. A few even defiant. But this was new. This was terror dressed in irony. Laughter as a war cry. You speak nonsense, Vertal said, his voice echoing through the comm channel. You are alone. Unarmed. Dying. Wrong on all counts, the human whispered. The crowd, once riotous, had gone dead silent. Not a word. Not a breath. The wind in the dome had stilled. Even the banners, embroidered with alien sigils of conquest, hung limp in the air. Then the human spoke again, softly, rhythmically. We only needed one of us to get inside. No one moved. Not Kelvar. Not the guards flanking the arena floor. Not even the automated sentries lining the upper tier. And then the human began to hum. A strange, syncopated pattern, barely audible, but it wormed its way into every comlink, every helmet, every neural translator. The melody was simple, ancient in rhythm, yet it reverberated like a code buried deep within the alien systems. Vertal's HUD blinked. System warnings? Neural interference. Frequencies syncing without authorization. Across the dome, a single alien soldier dropped his weapon and began to tremble. Kelvar backed away. He's broadcasting something, emotional patterns, psychic echoes. It's just noise, the general snarled. But his voice was tight now. Less certain. The human slumped back, laughing again, this time weaker, but no less sharp. You wanted fear. I gave you the mirror. What mirror? Kelvar snapped. The one you cracked the moment you pulled the trigger. Vertal took a step forward. End him. Now. The guards didn't move. Their eyes were wide, pupils dilated. One of them was crying. Then another started humming. The general's heart stuttered. He turned to Kelvar. Shut the broadcast down. There's no broadcast, Kelvar whispered. It's him. He's the signal. The laughter grew again, hoarse, gurgling, relentless. And then, darkness. Every light in the dome blinked out. Total silence followed. Until a single human voice, amplified now through every helmet and speaker, whispered. This is how extinction begins. The dome stayed dark for 13 full seconds. That was long enough for General Vertal to remember fear. When the lights surged back to life, paler now, flickering, he saw his elite soldiers frozen mid-motion. Weapons half lowered. Mouths agape. The human lay motionless in the center of the arena, eyes closed. No more laughter. No more humming. But the damage had already begun. "Where's the signal origin?" Vertal demanded. His voice cracked against the chamber's calm static. Commander Kelvar stood rigid, eyes locked on his interface. "There was no signal, General. The wave was psychic, subauditory, emotional resonance." He triggered it with his laugh. "The frequency was felt, not heard." Vertal stepped forward, his crimson mantle dragging behind him. "We severed their transmissions. Confined their networks. Humanity has no capacity for emotional transference beyond primitive behavior conditioning." Kelvar didn't look up. "Then explain why half our soldiers are still paralyzed." The general's gaze shifted toward the upper balconies. 2 soldiers had slumped to their knees. One was whispering in perfect Terran standard. "We only needed one of us to get inside." The phrase again. Like a key in a lock. In the underchambers beneath the arena, the human, now stripped of armor, bound in restraints, was wheeled into a high-security examination ward. The air was stale, thick with sterilizers and recycled ozone. 2 medical officers flanked the table, both from the talker species, translucent skin, bulbous eyes, neurothreads writhing across their temples. "He's dying," one whispered. "No." The other pointed to the vitals. "He should be. Heart rate is decelerating, but neural activity is peaking." They both turned to the commander standing beside the table. Kelvar's mandibles clicked in frustration. "What is he?" The human's eyes snapped open. Pale blue. "Too alive." Kelvar flinched. "Identify yourself." The human smiled, less amusement this time, more pity. "You didn't kill a soldier, Commander. You detonated a message." Kelvar's claws tightened. "Explain." "Why?" the human asked gently. "You already feel it." Kelvar inhaled through his gills, trying to steady himself. He did feel it, an itch at the edge of his thoughts, like static bleeding through consciousness. "You engineered this moment," the commander said flatly. "This wasn't survival. It was strategy." "Close," the human replied. "It was inevitability." Kelvar leaned closer. "We will break you." "You already did," the human whispered. "That's why it's spreading." The monitors behind him blinked. A proximity alarm flared. Unauthorized biometric spikes, inside the security ring. Kelvar turned sharply. "Seal the lower wings, now!" Too late. Screams echoed from the upper levels. 2 guards ran past the observation glass, one convulsing, the other humming that same slow, terrible melody. The melody wasn't just in the air. It was in their minds. Back in the command chamber, General Vertal stared at the reports cascading across his HUD. Entire sections of the barracks had gone silent. AI systems were isolating entire corridors as soldiers exhibited signs of, what did the report say? Emotional recursion. "What does that mean?" he barked at his aide. "They're stuck," the aide stammered. "Mentally. Replaying a specific emotional stimulus. Paralyzed by it. Contagious." Vertal's spines arched upward. "Like a virus." His aide nodded grimly. "A psychological contagion. No tech. No weapons. Just one man, breaking their logic by feeling something they don't understand." Vertal's claws trembled slightly. He laughed. And something inside their empire shattered. Back in the med chamber, the humans stared upward at the glow panels above, eyelids heavy. "You'll never understand it," he said softly, almost to himself. "You trained your soldiers to kill. We trained ours to endure. You sought to erase us with shame. We turned that into fuel." Kelvar stared at him. "What do you want from us?" The human turned his head slowly. "Not a thing. You already gave us what we needed." "What was that?" Kelvar whispered. A grin flickered on the man's face. You gave us your attention. Kelvar stood in the observation bay overlooking the infirmary. His hands were clenched behind his back, claws twitching in frustration. Below him, the human sat upright now, unshackled, by order of Vertal himself. Not out of mercy. Out of fear. The man's chart still blinked red: internal hemorrhaging, spinal trauma, 3 missing ribs. But somehow, his vitals had stabilized. His body refused death like his mind had refused silence. Kelvar watched him smile at the guards through the glass. They wouldn't meet his gaze. Why haven't we sedated him? He growled. Doctor This, head of alien bioanalysis, stood nearby. Her voice was thin, mechanical. We tried. 5 times. His nervous system either rejects the compound or converts it into adrenaline. We've never seen anything like it. Human modification? No. This is evolution. In the central barracks, the infection spread, not biologically, but ideologically. Private Techni, a foot soldier bred for obedience, had stopped speaking entirely. For the last 2 hours, he'd been etching a strange symbol into the walls of his quarters. A spiral, 3 lines crossing at the center. The same pattern the human had carved into his cell floor with his fingernail. When questioned, Techni simply said, He laughed through death. What are we dying for? Back in the observation bay, Kelvar approached the glass. You're contaminating my men. Infecting their thoughts. The human looked up at him with calm, unblinking eyes. Not contaminating. Cleansing. Kelvar leaned in, jaw tightening. How? The man tilted his head. You mistake control for strength. But strength is knowing what to do after control fails. I will dissect that philosophy from your skull. You can try, the human murmured. But you'll find it already beating in your own. Elsewhere in the compound, General Vertal stood in a shadowed command chamber lit by a dozen flickering tactical displays. A silent alarm pulsed in the corner of his vision. Protocol read, Internal psychological instability unit spread, 41%. He didn't blink. Just stared. Execute a neural purge across infected zones, he ordered. His technicians hesitated. General, those units aren't violent. They're just still. Stillness is worse, he spat. Still minds become questioning minds. A message arrived moments later. Encrypted. Human dialect. Untraceable source. A single line. We never came to win the war. We came to remind you what fear feels like. Vertal crushed the datapad in his hand. Back in the infirmary, the air had grown heavy, though the filters were running. Kelvar entered alone this time, weapon drawn. Stand up, he ordered. The human obeyed. No protest. Just eerie stillness. On your knees. He knelt. His breath was steady. You broke our systems. You infected our command. Why not just kill me? The human met his eyes. Because death is mercy, he said. But memory lingers. Kelvar's trigger finger twitched. But something in the human's voice made his hands shake. You're afraid, the man said. Not of me. Of what I represent. And what's that? Proof. That we're not weaker. Not broken. Just awake. A sudden tremor rocked the facility. Sirens wailed, but no weapons fired. A voice echoed through the intercoms, alien, but altered. Robotic, static-laced. We see him. We hear him. He is us now. Kelvar staggered backward. The infection had reached the AI cores. In the distance, a wall-sized monitor flickered to life. The general's own soldiers stood in a formation, silent, unarmed. Dozens. Hundreds. Just standing. Watching. The humming had returned. Low. Unified. And somehow, beautiful. Kill me, the human whispered. Kelvar looked down the sights of his rifle. One pull. But in that moment, he saw something terrifying in the man's eyes. Hope. The silence that followed the first shot was more disturbing than the impact itself. Smoke curled lazily from the wound on Elias's left shoulder, his uniform burning at the edges, the fabric fused to skin. He didn't scream. He didn't stumble. He just looked at the hole in his arm, then looked up, and laughed. The laughter wasn't manic. It wasn't crazed. It was quiet, low, almost amused. As if the universe had finally shown its hand, and it was exactly the one Elias had expected. General Korthak froze. Across the bloodied sands of the execution arena, the assembled legions of the Dral Confederacy shifted uneasily. They had witnessed humans die. Screaming, defiant, broken, but never laughing. Not like this. Not while bleeding out under a death sentence. Commander Relin stepped forward, his mandibles twitching. "Should I finish him, General?" Korthak didn't answer. His yellow eyes were locked on Elias. Not with contempt anymore, but curiosity. Suspicion. Elias leaned back against the scorched metal posts behind him. His hands were bound, his shoulder was ruined, but his voice was clear. "You expected screaming, didn't you?" he asked, his tone light. "Expected a plea? Maybe a sob. That's the problem with you conqueror types. You keep forgetting who we are. You're vermin," Korthak growled, stepping down from the platform. "Primitive. You send orphans into diplomacy and call it strategy. You live on a dying world and pretend it's paradise." Elias nodded slowly. "Maybe. But here's the part you missed, General. We don't send orphans. We send ghosts." A sudden chill passed through the air, as if the atmosphere had dimmed by a fraction. Relin's eyes darted between them. "Sir, the human is stalling. Protocol demands." "Silence," Korthak snapped. Elias exhaled slowly through his nose. Blood dripped steadily from his arm, soaking the sand beneath him. And still he smiled. "They told me you executed the translators," Elias said. "Burned the schoolchildren. Made their parents watch." Korthak's silence confirmed it. Elias continued, more to himself now. "We gave you a choice. Trade. Peace. And you spat on it. Laughed at it. Because your peace is weakness," Korthak snarled. "Your mercy, your compassion, none of it saves you. You're alone. Outnumbered. Outgunned." Elias looked up, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "Yeah, we are." Then he leaned forward, and something in his voice dropped, steady, cold, final. "But we're not done." In that instant, three things happened. First, a sharp, metallic ping rang out, a sound so precise it sliced through the tension like a scalpel. The cuffs around Elias's wrists fell open. Second, a small glimmer of red light blinked behind the general's head, laser targeting, human origin. Third, Elias stepped forward. "Sniper in position," Elias murmured. "Took you long enough, Marla." From 100 meters out, hidden beneath Dral signal cloaks, the human sharpshooter Marla Bishop whispered into her mic. "Had to wait for the punchline." Korthak raised his claw, but Elias was already moving, wounded arm limp, right hand diving beneath the folds of his tattered jacket. The arena erupted. Gunfire. Shouts. Kinetic waves flaring against Dral armor. Sand turned to glass beneath plasma heat. But through it all, one sound cut through with eerie clarity. Elias laughed again, louder this time, joyous, almost serene. "Tell the stars," he said, gripping the detonator in his hand. "Humanity sends its regards." Then, black. The smoke hadn't cleared, and neither had the silence. Captain Tall stood motionless in the blood-slick corridor of the alien command deck, her breath ragged but measured. Her combat suit hummed faintly, shielding her from the radiation pouring through the fractured ceiling. All around her, charred remnants of the Zarn elite forces twitched in death, or refused to move entirely. One stood barely, until it slumped against a wall, crimson ichor oozing from what had once been a head. Behind her, the two remaining members of her squad, Private Henley and Corporal Yannick, watched with silent reverence, eyes wide. Not just because they'd survived the ambush, but because Tal hadn't fired a single shot. Not one. I didn't even see her move, Yannick whispered, voice hollow with disbelief. You didn't, Henley replied. That's the point. Tal's name had traveled before her. Whispers of the ghost of Delphi. But legends rarely breathe, rarely bleed. And yet she stood here, real, resolute, and terrifyingly calm. She turned slowly, black eyes like obsidian set in a human face too still. How many remain? She asked, her voice low and even. Motion sensors still count over 300 in the command arena, Yannick replied, consulting the cracked display on his forearm. Heavies. Drones. Those mechs with the tail spikes. The general's personal guard. Tal nodded. Good. Henley blinked. Ma'am, did you say good? The general wants a show, she said, moving forward. I'll give him the last performance he'll ever see. The central doors groaned open, a slow metallic yawn revealing the arena beyond, a vast amphitheater drenched in ultraviolet light, the floor polished and black like obsidian. Tiered balconies rose high above, packed with Zarn soldiers hissing in delight at the sudden exposure of their prey. And at the top, on a throne of bone and synth metal, sat General Karash. 8 feet tall. Covered in ceremonial carapace armor. Smiling, if his kind could be said to smile. Human! Karash's voice boomed across the arena, laced with contempt and curiosity. Do your species always send the smallest to die first? Tal stepped forward, her boots clicking in rhythm with her heartbeat. Only when we know they'll win. Laughter erupted from the balconies, a rising tide of mockery. A single human? Against an entire army? Karash stood, raising his clawed hand. The soldiers fell silent instantly. I have executed your men. Vaporized your cities. Reduced your colonies to dust. And you still crawl to me, fragile, breakable. You humans are amusing in your... Tal laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was wrong. A short, sharp breath. A note of amusement sharpened into a scalpel. The arena fell quiet, like prey sensing a predator it hadn't seen coming. I'm not here to kill you, General, she said, voice cool as a glacier's edge. I'm here to remind you why your ancestors sealed Earth off behind black stars and classified warnings. Karash's smile twitched. For the first time, there was something behind his eyes. Doubt. You came alone? He asked. Tal tilted her head. That's your mistake. The arena lights began to flicker. A low hum reverberated through the air, subtle, too low for most to hear. But the Zarn mech suddenly froze. Their ocular sensors blinked erratically. Drones spun midair, aimless. Yannick tapped his earpiece. Ma'am, did you just activate the Black Protocol? No, she said. I am the Black Protocol. From above, hidden panels slid open. Dozens of small human tech orbs dropped silently into the arena, embedding into the walls, the ground, even the throne. Their glow pulsed in unison. Karash turned too late. The walls shifted. The arena sank. The balconies separated. And Tal stepped onto the edge of what had once been a battleground, and now resembled an execution pit. Her voice was calm. History has tried to forget us. But we are not myths. We are not shadows. We are human. She raised her left hand. The arena detonated in light. A scream, alien and human, echoed together. And then the feed cut.